Yoichi is an ugly bumpkin who has trained all his life in the mountains to become strong. However, his father decides it's time for Yoichi to get a wife, so he is sent to the city, but he ends up rizzing up all the baddies and clap them instead. Deep in the mountains, this wannabe Tanjiro uses a sword style to capture some fish. Once he accomplishes his mission, he heads back when he is suddenly intercepted by a bunch of arrows. As Yoichi dodges them all, a man flies from the bushes yelling he is a dingus who is wasting Earth's precious oxygen and should die. However, before he could strike him, Yoichi easily intercepts his attack and tells his own father he is a disappointment. Later in their crib, Yoichi's father tells him how it has been 17 agonizing years since he stopped chasing baddies and started raising him in the mountains. But now it's finally time for him to get his pee-pee wet, so he must leave the mountain and go to the outside world. Understanding his father, Yoichi vows to him that he will become a strong samurai and leaves that very day to stay with the Ikuruga family who runs a dojo in the city. Back in the city, Ibuki sets the table for breakfast when suddenly a bell rings. Her ugly sister, Kagome, goes to see who is outside but lets out a scream which wakes the entire household. Ibuki hurries outside and finds an arrow from Yoichi's father. Upon reading the letter attached to it, Ibuki sternly tells Kagome to gather their sisters. Now, with all the members present, Ibuki reveals how a boy named Yoichi will be staying with them. Ayame expresses her disagreement with the idea and asks Ibuki why they should let a boy they've never met before in their safe haven. Ibuki, however, tells Ayame that their family and the Karasunas have a long history so they can trust Yoichi. Upon hearing such a response, Ayame tells her sister Earth is not for a beginner like her. When she asks Chihaya for backup, the girl tells Ayame she is fine with a boy living with them and reasons how they can put Yoichi to work. Ayame asks her what they will do if Yoichi turns out to be a cultured swine, but Chihaya shrugs and says that kind of trauma will make them all comedians. In the end, Ayame grumbles but eventually gives in, clearly outvoted. Meanwhile, Yoichi arrives in the city, wide-eyed and full of wonder. Dressed in a full kimono and carrying a sword like he is about to occupy Korea, Yoichi immediately catches everyone's attention. People stare, unsure if he is a schizo or a schizo with a fashion sense. Before long, he runs into a group of wannabe tough guys. One of them, Wasen, tries to show dominance by kicking Yoichi's sword. Unfortunately, Yoichi treats his blade with more respect than most people treat their girlfriends, so the offense doesn't sit well. Without even unsheathing it, he swings hard, and the gust from the strike sends Wasen flying like he forgot gravity existed. The crowd watches, stunned as they wonder how did this broomstick of a man just one-shot their strongest local menace. Naturally, a police officer steps in and slaps cuffs on Yoichi, reminding him that swinging swords in public is generally frowned upon. At the station, they quickly realize he is not a delinquent, just a bumpkin who is out of sync with modern laws. The moment Yoichi realizes he is late, he dashes off. Back at the mall, the girls get tired of waiting. Ayame and Chihaya decide to go shopping to pass the time, while Kagome slips away to find the restroom. Meanwhile, Yoichi, completely disoriented, heads for the upper floor to get a better view. Unfortunately, fate decides to prank him, and he ends up barging into a changing stall just as Ayame is mid-outfit swap. Frozen in panic, he slaps a hand over her mouth to keep her from screaming, while his other hand ends up on her personal airbags. Ayame, now livid, goes full Mortal Kombat on him, delivering a swift kick to his lower ancestors and announcing to the whole mall that she is being harassed by a schizo. The cops reappear, just in time to arrest him again, but before they can do anything, a purse snatcher makes a break for it. Yoichi, deciding today's the day he unlocks side quests, bolts after the thief. The chase wins through the mall until Yoichi finally corners him in the library. However, he accidentally crashes into Chihaya, who was in the wrong place at the worst possible time, causing Yoichi to befriend her vertical lips. As Chihaya teases him, Yoichi spots the thief again and takes off in pursuit. With a few acrobatic stunts and one gust-powered swing, he knocks the guy out cold. Not one to leave loose ends, he wraps the thief in his own hoodie like a burrito and disappears before mall security can catch up. By now, Yoichi wanders around, overwhelmed and questioning all of his life choices. Just as he's about to give up, he spots Kagome, teary-eyed and completely lost after taking a wrong turn on her way back. At the same time, Ibuki and the others realize Kagome hasn't returned and begin searching for her. Elsewhere, Kagome sits alone, sniffling. Yoichi finds her and gently reassures her, promising to reunite her with her sisters. From the top floor, they spot Ibuki, but right then, the police arrive for a third round of arrests. Yoichi pulls a Spider-Man-worthy move, jumping down to safely hand Kagome over before getting launched out of the mall and landing on a moving train like he's in the middle of a budget action movie. Later, he ends up on a quiet bridge, reflecting on how horribly sideways everything's gone. That's when Ibuki shows up, finally introducing herself as the acting instructor at the dojo. But Yoichi, being Yoichi, is far too distracted by her beautiful eyes to absorb anything she is saying. Before the situation can get more awkward, a cop shows up again to arrest him yet again, citing complaints from mall security. Wanting to set things right, Yoichi insists on apologizing to every shop owner he might have disrupted. Surprisingly, the shopkeepers hold no grudges. With that, the officers finally agree to let him go. Ibuki then brings him home and Yoichi is greeted by a sight he wasn't ready for. Standing in front of him are the very same girls he accidentally embarrassed, fondled, collided with, and traumatized in the span of a few hours. Trying to play it cool, he introduces himself, while internally screaming. The girls, on the other hand, are silently wondering what kind of plot twist life has handed them. The following morning, Ibuki thinks about the previous night, and how Ayame was totally against having Yoichi stay with them. She claims that Yoichi wanted to crash her twin towers, but her sisters find that hard to believe since she is built like a jet herself. When she tries to get Chihaya on board, she finds out her sister is more than cool with a man touching her. Similarly, Ibuki tries to vouch for Yoichi's innocence, explaining that he is a proud swordsman who doesn't intend to unsheath his own sword on them. Now in the present, Ibuki finds Yoichi training in the room. Upon seeing her, Yoichi bids her a good morning and explains he needs to work out early in the morning since he is alpha like that. Just when Ibuki thinks she was right about him, Yoichi tries to grab the bucket of water from her hands only to splash it all on her. Seeing her wet, Yoichi eyeballs Ibuki like he is a middle-aged man who has a loving wife and 2 kids at home. Before Ibuki can say anything, she discovers Yoichi's dirty poetry and sends him flying through the roof. Inside her room, Ayame mumbles about how Ibuki colonized her share of the Biwubs when suddenly Yoichi crashes through her windows and lands on her runway of a chest. As Ayame lets out a yell, her sisters rush inside the room only to find Yoichi recreating a scene from your parents' first night together. Soon, Ibuki arrives and uses Yoichi as a human pinata. After that disaster, they all head to the academy together. Yoichi, however, is beyond excited, like a fatso walking into a candy store for the first time. Ayame, on the other hand, is worried since she is sure Yoichi is going to go off the rails when he sees the lineup of Haz at the academy. But her fears are somewhat alleviated when Yoichi thanks them for granting his wish of going to a city academy. In response, Ayame bolts ahead, telling him not to talk to her during academy hours. Meanwhile, at the academy, Wasen arrives and hears people talking about how he got his backside whooped. Just when he is about to beat the people talking about him, he finds Ibuki approaching and quickly hides behind the tree. Hearing her voice, his ding-a-ling begins to ting-a-ling. However, just then, he finds Yoichi with Ibuki, which causes his jaw to drop. Later inside the class, Yoichi introduces himself to his new peers while Ibuki prays to all the gods from every faith to make sure Yoichi doesn't say anything stupid. Of course, he drops the bombshell that he is living with Ibuki at the dojo. Hearing this, Wasen loses his cool and begins to tweak like a druggie, causing him to lose all aura in front of the class. Ibuki laughs at him, which makes him think that she is mocking him, causing him to feel even more like a clown than usual. At lunch, Ibuki tries to explain to her friends that Yoichi is just a freeloader, but they instantly assume he is her fiancé and start calling her a dojo princess, which makes her cringe. Later on, she walks into class to find Yoichi surrounded by the baddies who are suddenly interested in seeing the sword in his pants. Similarly, Yoichi thinks about how this academy seriously rocks and recalls the lame Academy in the mountains where his only fun time was occasionally trying out some gorilla pom-pom. Finally, having enough of this nonsense, Ibuki pulls Yoichi aside, warning him not to chase every skirt that comes his way, or it will make the dojo look bad. Just then, Wasen overhears them and jumps to conclusions, thinking Yoichi is mistreating Ibuki. Naturally, he challenges him to a fight. Meanwhile, in another class, Ayame's teacher asks her why she has turned into a nincompoop. Pouting, Ayame asks her why she is bothering her, prompting the teacher to state that she is nothing like Ibuki, who is smart and well-mannered. Just then, Ayame hears chatters about Wasen and Yoichi's fight, which causes her to leave the class in the middle of her teacher's yap. In the academy's courtyard, the boys square off, with Yoichi complimenting Wasen's composure before immediately receiving a punch. However, Yoichi takes the hit like a piece of cotton candy, evades the next few, and knocks Wasen to the ground. But Wasen pulls out a spiked black ball, determined to land the final blow. Yoichi dodges it easily and takes Wasen down with one well-placed strike. Later, Ibuki comforts Wasen, handing him her handkerchief to wipe his snot, and then runs off with Yoichi. Wasen, however, is determined to save Ibuki from her toxic relationship. That evening, Yoichi comes down with a fever, and the girls rally around him in concern. Ayame, being the skeptic, mocks him for being so weak, while Ibuki, ever the mother hen, keeps him from doing something drastic to make himself feel better. Ayame, realizing she's the one who needs to step up, and decides to cook Yoichi a comfort meal. Meanwhile, Ibuki gives Yoichi a pep talk and is relieved when his fever seems to go down a bit. She heads out to buy ingredients for dinner. Yoichi, still feeling confused, asks Chihaya about her tough love approach, and she explains that she had to grow up quickly, taking on the responsibility of looking after everyone and running the dojo at a young age. Realizing he's been a jerk, Yoichi starts to see things from her perspective. Ayame, on the other hand, is struggling in the kitchen, and just as she's about to give up, Kagome appears. Ayame, in full tsundere mode, denies that she's cooking for Yoichi. Kagome, however, offers to help her out, and together, they prepare the meal. When Ayame finally arrives at Yoichi's room with the dish, she finds it empty. However, she spots Yoichi talking with Ibuki outside, looking perfectly fine. Ibuki scolds him, worried about his health, but the two share an awkward, synchronized moment where they both apologize and laugh it off. Ayame, watching from her room, gets a pang of jealousy, feeling like she'll always be second to Ibuki. In her frustration, she trips, throwing the dish out the window. Fortunately, Yoichi saves it but crashes through the window in the process. As Ayame rushes to check on him, he assures her he's fine, and after tasting the meal, he praises her for it. Ayame, flustered, smiles at the compliment, but when Yoichi says she looks better with a smile, she kicks him in the face as her tsundere instincts come out in full force. The next day, two blonde bombshells strut into the city like they've stepped out of a fanservice festival. Tsubasa practically squeals at every corner, soaking in the manga-like setting with sparkly eyes, while her partner, Angela, coldly reminds her of their actual objective, taking down Yoichi. She's hyped that their elusive Tsubaime Benton martial art will finally make a public comeback. But before she can finish her dramatic speech, Tsubasa pulls a fatherly move and vanishes. Morning hits, and at the dojo, Ibuki joins Yoichi and Ayame in their daily cleaning ritual. She casually notes Ayame's suspiciously enthusiastic participation in domestic duties, which is unusual from her Badial cool-headed self. Ayame denies everything like a guilty puppy, but the truth is, she's following Chihaya's genius advice to get closer to Yoichi. Unfortunately, she's catching feelings faster than she catches flies, and mid-mop, she realizes she's morphing into a walking simp. Embarrassed beyond repair, she flees the dojo. Later at Academy, the homeroom teacher introduces a new transfer student. As Tsubasa walks in, the boys instantly unleash their inner drakes upon seeing a petite Giles. Even Yoichi gets swept up, and behaves like he has just seen an anime goddess. But Ibuki is quick to elbow him back to reality, shooting him a glare that says remember who you're supposed to simp for. Outside the classroom, Angela watches the chaos unfold like a proud dancer mom. She assumes this is part of Tsubasa's plan to charm Yoichi before striking, but the truth is, Tsubasa just wants to vibe as a regular student. During class, she's swarmed by curious classmates, but can't answer basic questions without blowing her cover. Things spiral when a stray football flies her way, and she slices it into confetti like she has been playing Fruit Ninja since the moment she left her dad's nutsack. As panic sets in, Tsubasa becomes convinced her academy life is over until Yoichi saves the scene by calling it nothing more than good reflexes. Soon enough, Inuki steps in and introductions are made, allowing Tsubasa to relax at least for now. Angela, still tailing her like a secret agent with trust issues, is however stunned since she expected backstabbing, not bonding. Later on, Tsubasa spends the entire day making friends. After Academy, Tsubasa's peaceful walk home is rudely interrupted by local nuisance Torgeya. But just before the bullying begins, Wasen appears and saves the day by telling her to be more cautious. Tsubasa is immediately smitten, mentally dubbing him Prince of Riz. Her fangirling gets cut short when Angela teleports in, demanding an update on the Yoichi mission. Tsubasa casually claims she'll get to it, which only enrages Angela, who reminds her that their clan's survival depends on that sweet reward money. Before she can rant further, Tsubasa slips away again, dodging responsibility like a pro. As luck would have it, she runs into Yoichi and Ibuki again, who invite her to walk home with them. But Angela isn't done. She storms in, tears Tsubasa's uniform off, revealing curves that send Yoichi's soul to the earth. Angela commands her to fight, triggering her combat mode, which is activated by maximum embarrassment. Tsubasa goes full assassin, attacking Yoichi with kicks fast enough to fry retinas. He notices her lifeless gaze and realizes she's been programmed to go full Terminator when flustered. All attempts at reasoning fail as she nearly finishes him with a surprise move straight out of an adult-rated special. Before things escalate further, Wasen drops in and misreads the situation like always. He throws his jacket over Tsubasa like a knight, assuming Yoichi is the villain. As the misunderstanding escalates, Tsubasa snaps out of her trance and vanishes in shame. Angela gives one look to Yoichi and runs off. Later, Angela finds Tsubasa crying in a park like a rejected magical girl. She expresses her anger and confesses that she never wanted to be an assassin since she hates martial arts and just wants to be a normal girl, not her clan's last hope. Angela, stunned by the emotional apology, quietly disappears, letting her partner be. That night, Yoichi steps outside for air and is ambushed by Angela, who challenges him for a duel. The fight kicks off with a clothes-tearing move by Yoichi, exposing Angela's dominatrix drip. The girls arrive just in time to witness the scene while Yoichi's soul takes another critical hit upon seeing the top-class plot armor. When questioned, Angela admits they were hired by a mysterious figure to eliminate Yoichi in exchange for enough money to save their dying clan. With no personal grudge, just bills to pay, she attacks again. Yoichi blocks and starts dropping a Naruto speech about rebuilding her clan through teaching, not assassination. As always, it works. Angela backs off, and on her way out, she meets Tsubasa again. The girls reconcile, and Tsubasa pitches a new plan: skip the whole murder part and just become buddies with Yoichi. A few days later, Yoichi and Ibuki bump into Tsubasa making ramen deliveries, revealing that she and Angela now work part-time. Angela appears soon after, confirming that shady contracts are out, and honest work is in, much to Yoichi's delight. The next day at the dojo, Chihiya's editor pesters her about the overdue manga, and though she promises new pages soon, it's clear she's struggling with a nasty case of artist block. Meanwhile, before their session begins, Ibuki asks Yoichi to teach her students a thing or two about swordplay. When the class casts doubtful glances his way, Ibuki confidently declares that Yoichi may look like he graduated from WhatsApp University, but he is miles ahead of her in swordsmanship. Yoichi, however, admits he has never swung a sword just for entertainment. To remedy that, Ibuki proposes a sparring match for the students to learn by example. During the duel, Yoichi quickly realizes that Ibuki's strikes are no joke, as they are precise enough to end Muzan and his demons in one shot. Sensing the need to up his game, he retaliates with a wind technique that accidentally blasts her chest wraps loose, leaving everyone in the dojo with a wank bank. Furious, Ibuki unleashes dojo-wide justice, leaving the students crawling home with skull lumps large enough to need postal codes. Later, Yoichi suggests that she ease up on the violence if they want more students, since her scary rep might be bad for business, no matter how skilled she is. Ibuki, however, mistakes the suggestion as flirtation and waves him off. Watching their banter play out like two love-sick puppies triggers a pang of jealousy in Ayam. Using a bath as an excuse, she ducks out, while Yoichi is left with cleanup duty. As Ayam soaks in the tub and lets her mind wander to steamy scenarios involving Yoichi, her fantasies are interrupted by Chihiya barging in and asking why she's been acting weird around him. Caught off guard, Ayam's face flashes crimson as she denies everything a little too loudly. Chihiya, sensing juicy gossip, teases her further before coming up with a plan to test if she still has enough charm to seduce Yoichi herself. Later, she finds him freeloading outside the dojo. Without warning, she grabs him and drags him to her room. Inside, Yoichi is genuinely impressed by the draft of her manga and praises her storytelling, which instantly melts Chihiya's cold girl vibe into full-on fangirl mode. She starts rambling about plot ideas, only to apologize after realizing she's overwhelming him. Yoichi, however, is more surprised by how lively she is, compared to her usual gothic gloom. Suddenly recalling her original motive, she shifts the mood and flirts with Zero Chill, asking him which one of her sisters he would most like to cream. When that doesn't work, she tries to riz him by leaning in and whispering not-so-PG things into his ear while stripping down with confidence. But instead of falling for the bait, Yoichi pushes her away and launches into a lecture about staying pure for someone special. Just as Chihaya claims it was all a test, Ibuki kicks the door down like a SWAT team and finds them in a very compromising position. Before Yoichi can explain, Chihaya plays the victim card and accuses him of coming on to her, prompting Ibuki to smack him around like a pinata. Chihaya, of course, can't help but mock her for being jealous, calling them a pair of lovebirds before walking off like a true agent of Lucifer. Once alone, Ibuki admits that Chihaya's been unusually happy lately, possibly because Yoichi's been a weird source of emotional support. She also claims that her sister is normally stressed from juggling work and academy, but today she actually looked alive. Meanwhile, outside the dojo, Chihaya bumps into Ayame, who immediately asks if things got spicy with Yoichi. Chihaya laughs it off, saying he was too uptight for action, and even tells Ayame to shoot her shot instead. The next day, Kagome returns from academy to find Ibuki chasing Yoichi around the yard over another accidental melon touch incident. The chaos ends with Yoichi crash landing into Kagome, destroying her precious art project. To make amends, Ibuki assigns Yoichi the task of delivering Chihaya's notebook to academy while she tries to fix Kagome's artwork. Determined not to mess up, Yoichi marches straight into the girls' changing room without reading the sign, sparking mass panic. Meanwhile, in class, Chihaya is caught working on her manga during a lecture and gets scolded for not paying attention. Just as she explains she forgot her notes, the hallway erupts with the sound of girls chasing Yoichi. After being trampled, he finally delivers the notebook. Chihaya teases him for his magnetism toward accidental plot development with the baddies, and then explains she pulled an all-nighter to work on her manga. Impressed, Yoichi commends her dedication, and her eyes light up as she gushes about how much she loves creating manga. Back at home, Ibuki chats with Kagome while helping with the art repairs. She casually admits that despite Yoichi being clumsy and full of accidental fanservice, and she wouldn't mind being the main girl in his story. Kagome picks up on the fact that Ibuki may have caught a case of love sickness and feels sorry for her, as she is the only one who knows they are in a harem. Later, as Yoichi prepares to leave Chihaya's academy, he overhears some delinquents trash-talking Chihaya and mocking her passion for manga. Sensing trouble, he rushes back and finds her manuscript torn to pieces. Though she pretends to be unfazed and tells him she'll just redraw it, the truth slips when he hears her crying behind the door. Fueled by rage, Yoichi confronts the bullies before they can leave and gives them a solid beating, warning them not to tear down people who work hard just because they are soyjacks themselves. When Chihaya sees the bruised clowns outside academy, she instantly knows Yoichi was the one who avenged her. That night, she proudly shows off her completed manuscript to everyone, revealing that the story's hero is based on Yoichi himself as a token of gratitude. Just to stir the pot, she grabs his hand in a spicy way, making both Ibuki and Ayame boil with jealousy before strutting out like a girl boss. The next day, while walking to academy with Yoichi, Ibuki casually asks if he's getting the hang of things. Yoichi replies that he's still trying to adjust. Before their conversation can go any further, they get swarmed by a flock of first-year babes. One of them, Hinagata, who might just be as hot as Ibuki, hands him a love letter. But since Yoichi's has cow dung for brain, he assumes it's a challenge to a duel. Later in class, Ibuki reads the letter aloud, and it turns out to be a date invitation. Yoichi has no clue what a date even is, and when she explains, he suddenly lights up at the thought of scoring a cute girl, making Ibuki's blood boil. Jealous and annoyed, she storms out of the classroom while the lads curse their own luck. As she stomps through the hallway, she imagines Yoichi and Hinagata getting too close for good. She rushes back to class, shoves her pride in a drawer, and asks Yoichi out herself, claiming she only wants to prep him so he doesn't mess up and embarrass the hood. But while getting ready for the date, Ibuki finds herself acting unusually nervous. Out of nowhere, Chihaya and Kagome appear behind her like ninjas, asking why she's dressed like she is headed to an audition for Black. Ibuki fumbles through some terrible excuses, making them suspicious that something's definitely up. Later, while strolling through the city with Yoichi, Ibuki realizes she has never really shown him around since he arrived. But before she can ask where he wants to go, Yoichi tries to aura farm by challenging random passers-by to fights. She gives him a well-deserved whack and drags him off. At the mall, Ibuki forces Yoichi into some casual wear, but he complains that his balls are unable to breathe in these yo-yo-ah shorts. Unfortunately, Ibuki insists he keep them on to avoid drawing attention with his outdated yukata and flashy sword. Furthermore, she casually tells Yoichi he actually looks like an e-boy from TikTok while mashing her melons against him, triggering a hormonal crisis that activates Yoichi's own sword. As they continue shopping, Ibuki gets excited over some cute dolls, and Yoichi is surprised by how stupid she's acting. She tries to regain composure and act mature, but the damage is done. Meanwhile, Ayam is also at the mall with her friends. One of them spots Ibuki with Yoichi and calls Ayam's attention. Seeing her sister with her mans, Ayam ditches her friends on the spot to spy on them. At the bowling alley, Ibuki tries to teach Yoichi how to bowl, and their close proximity makes both of them panic. Yoichi drops the ball on his foot, and in his fall, accidentally catches a glimpse of the reason why men go to war. Ibuki responds like any sane person would by beating the stupid out of him. As the manager scolds them for creating chaos, Ayam watches from a corner, confused as hell about why they're having fun together. Suddenly, Chihaya and Kogane pop up behind her, nearly scaring her to death. When Ayam asks what they're doing there, Chihaya explains she's just collecting content for her manga based on their date. Ayam, realizing how chummy Ibuki and Yoichi have gotten, decides to head back to her group, not wanting to crash their little outing. Meanwhile, Yoichi senses someone tailing them, but shrugs it off and continues the date. They share ice cream, hit up a karaoke booth, and later grab lunch before strolling through the park. As they walk, Ibuki notices other couples holding hands and gets the sudden urge to reach for his. But right as she musters the courage, Yoichi turns to ask her something, startling her into tripping. He tries to catch her, and they both end up crashing into a fountain. Expecting a violent tantrum, Yoichi is surprised when Ibuki starts laughing instead. She admits that being around him brings out her chaotic side, which is so different from the perfect image everyone thinks she is. Then, Yoichi pulls out the doll she was gushing over earlier and hands it to her, saying he bought it because he could tell she really wanted it. Ibuki's soul floats into the clouds. But then Yoichi ruins the moment by reminding her that the entire day was just a practice run. Crushed, she runs off heartbroken. Right then, Hinagata shows up and asks why he's soaking wet. Yoichi spills the tea about his day, then proceeds to reject her date request, saying their freaks do not match. The second he says that Hinagata's personality does a 180. She reveals she was planning to eliminate him all along and suddenly pulls a massive staff out from her snatch ready to throw hands. As Yoichi dodges her relentless attacks, he spots a window to counter, but the second he stares into her big sparkly eyes, he becomes to tweak like someone asked him English or Spanish. She uses the opening to land a massive hit. Meanwhile, a group of losers tries to flirt with Ibuki, talking trash about Yoichi in the process. Already pissed, Ibuki uses the opportunity to cosplay as an 80s husband. Back in battle mode, Yoichi manages to disarm Hinagata right as she's about to unleash her final move. Since he didn't get to smack her earlier, he whips out a move that rips off her clothes instead, revealing her glorious chesticles and forcing her to flee in humiliation. After the chaos, Yoichi calls out Chihaya and Kogane from their hiding spot. Just then, they hear Ibuki yelling for help. They sprint over, only to find her standing tall over a bunch of knocked-out creeps. That night, Chihaya tells Ayam that the date was just practice, which calms her nerves. But then the panic returns as she realizes Yoichi must be prepping for a real date with someone else. Meanwhile, Yoichi visits Ibuki in her room to thank her for hanging out. They move the conversation outside, and he shares that he turned Hinagata down because he didn't understand her feelings and that dates should be for people who love each other. This makes Ibuki's heart do backflips, as he begins to despair over his ugly face and prepares himself to die as a cherry boy. Ibuki almost blurts out her own unholy thirst, but instead tells him that one day, someone will look past his tragic face and fall for the sweet cinnamon roll that he is on the inside. The next day at Academy, Wazen is completely lost in thought, obsessing over the best way to return the handkerchief Ibuki gave him. He's convinced that if he doesn't return it properly, she'll never give him that vacuum cleaner soul suction. So deep is his concentration that when Torigare reaches out to snatch the hanky from his pocket, Wazen unconsciously sends him flying across the hallway like a misfired missile. Wandering through the hallways, Wazen spots Ibuki chasing Yoichi down the corridor. Apparently, Yoichi unsheathed the sword in his pants after staring at the bazookas of the model, and Ibuki's been on his tail ever since. As Wazen tries to approach her to return the hanky, he ends up catching an attack meant for Yoichi and gets body checked straight into the spirit realm. Later, while the academy nurse tends to his wounds in the infirmary, Wazen cackles like a weirdo as he comes up with a new plan. He'll place the handkerchief and a confession letter in Ibuki's locker. The nurse watches nervously, already rehearsing how she'll explain this in the incident report. Later, as Yoichi and Ibuki return to class, they notice a letter in Yoichi's locker. It's an invitation to meet on the rooftop. Meanwhile, Wasen waits up there, lost in his thoughts, reminiscing about how Ibuki was the only one who saw him as more than a piece of crap. Her kindness had melted his heart like butter on a sidewalk. With hope swelling in his chest, he hears footsteps behind him and turns around with a beaming smile and instantly dies inside when he sees Yoichi holding the letter. Realizing he dropped the letter into the wrong locker, Wasen decides to roll with it. He's about to confess his love for Ibuki anyway, but before he can get the words out, Yoichi cuts him off. He assumes all this attention from him is a roundabout way of asking to join the dojo. Just as Wasen tries to clarify, Ibuki makes an appearance behind Yoichi and invites Wasen to train with them. His brain short-circuits the moment she smiles at him, and his black mamba makes the executive decision to accept. After academy, Ibuki admits that the dojo felt too quiet before, but ever since Yoichi arrived, it's felt alive again. Meanwhile, a suspicious figure in shady attire meets with an emo dude from Yoichi's rival martial arts clan. He offers to hire him to assassinate Yoichi for disgracing their traditions by flaunting his skills in public. But the emo gym bro isn't interested in cash and torches the money. Instead, he promises to turn Yoichi into Jiraiya, free of charge. Back at the dojo the next day, Wasen arrives with his side chick Torgeya for their first session. As they hesitate at the door, Torgeya wonders out loud why Wasen suddenly wants to learn martial arts. Triggered by the question, Wasen snaps at him, just in time for a group of minions to show up. One of them, Masashi, tells them to beat it unless they're actually joining. He then calls Wasen a curry-smelling loser, redirecting Wasen's fury toward him instead. Just as Torgeya is about to beef with a group of minions, Ibuki arrives in full samurai drip, causing Wasen's white sauce to leak out of him. She welcomes them and explains to the kids that Torgeya and Wasen are her friends. Wasen almost ascends to heaven at the sound of that. But his joy is short-lived once inside. Ibuki assigns Yoichi to handle Wasen's basic training, crushing his soul like a Coke can. During training, Wasen can't concentrate. His eyes keep wandering toward Ibuki, so Yoichi uses his face as a punching bag, declaring that his mind needs training just as much as his body. As Wasen writhes in pain, Yoichi barks at him to quit whining. Wasen is just about to snap back when Ibuki checks in and cheers him on, instantly rizzing him. Soon, Chihaya and Kagome show up at the dojo and introduce themselves to Torgeya as Ibuki's sisters. He's stunned at that since he thought Ayame was her only sibling. Meanwhile, Ayame arrives home to find the house empty. Outside the dojo, she spots Yoichi begging for his life as Ibuki scolds him for going too hard on Wasen. Feeling guilty, she tries to comfort him, and Ayame, watching from afar, gets hit with a jealousy wave and storms to her room. Back inside, Yoichi starts teaching Wasen the fundamentals of sword swinging, starting with arm strength. Torgeya assumes Wasen's boxing training would suffice, but Yoichi explains that sword training requires a different set of muscles. He then instructs Wasen to begin with push-ups. Wasen hesitates until Ibuki tells him to obey, and suddenly he's on the ground like a loyal dog. Surprisingly, Yoichi joins Wasen in the push-ups, explaining that Ibuki reminded him he's still a student too and has no right to act like a master. Wasen, of course, believes he's just flexing for the huzz. Upstairs, Ayame is stirred awake by the ruckus and goes to check. She's stunned to find them doing a workout inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. By the 400th push-up, Wasen is ready to quit, but Yoichi declares he'll hit 1,000 as penance for earlier. Determined not to be outshined, Wasen grits his teeth and continues. In the kitchen, Kagome and Chihaya prep dinner. Chihaya notes how noisy things have been since Yoichi arrived and how expensive. Back in the dojo, Wasen is on the brink of meeting Tupac, but finally, they hit their 1,000 push-up mark. Chihaya and Kagome then arrive with food, and the group enjoys a well-earned dinner. Yoichi turns to Ayame and says how happy he is to have such a big family meal and how glad he is she joined the dojo. Ayame short-circuits, not knowing how to handle the fluster attack. A few days later, on a secluded tropical island, Chihaya and Ibuki lounge under a canopy of palm trees, still wrapping their heads around the fact that they actually won this island getaway from a random giveaway they signed up for on a whim. Just as they're talking about their unexpected luck, Angela and Tsubasa stroll up to thank them for bringing them along on the trip as Tsubasa fantasizes about turning this into a dreamy beach date with Wasen. But her beaky romance dreams are dashed when Ibuki casually drops that he never showed up. To pour salt on the wound, Angela stretches and says heartbreak hits differently when you pair it with a leg day. That's when Yoichi arrives looking like he got dressed in the dark, prompting the girls to shriek. Angela, however, zones in on his Greek god physique and practically starts overheating like a phone from Temu. Ibuki wastes no time in making him switch into something more ocean-friendly, but unbeknownst to them, the Jin reject and his lackeys are watching from a ship offshore. Turns out, he orchestrated this entire trip to trap Yoichi on the island and send him off to sleep with the SpongeBob SquarePants, using the Mizunagi twins as his executioners. Meanwhile, in the changing room, Ayame is trying to boost her self-esteem by stacking her weobs with some foam support when disaster strikes her chest strap snaps. At the exact worst time, Yoichi walks in, catching a full view of her flat board, and she bolts out screaming while he collapses like a girl with iron deficiency. Later, Yoichi tries to return her confidence cushions and ends up chasing her across the sand. But mid-chase, the Mizunagi twins release an aggressive bird monster. Yoichi dodges the creature like a pro and uses the chaos as an opportunity to sneak a grope while saving Ayame. Not stopping there, he also tries to sneak a peek at Tsubasa's sandbags under the guise of protecting her, but gets rewarded with a punch that sends him flying straight into Ibuki's ample chest. He stays there for a moment too long, and when he sees the bird charging at them again, he faceplants into her tatas to shield them both, which earns him another round of cartoon-grade punishment. As a consequence, Ibuki makes him join the other students for a grueling swim session. While he sulks in the shallows, Angela comes over to console him, assuring him she knows he didn't mean to be so cultured, he just has unfortunate timing. Realizing their plan failed, the Mizunagi twins call back their avian attack dog and decide to wait for Yoichi to walk into one of their many beach traps instead. Later, while everyone's enjoying the water, they notice Yoichi flailing like a half-drowned duck. Ibuki swims over to help, but when she sees what part of her he's staring at to keep himself motivated, she almost lets him sink out of rage. Afterward, the group notices that Kagome is still staying back, not joining the fun. Masashi, ever the talkative one, blurts out that she never participates in PE either, which makes Ibuki concerned. As Masashi tries to coax Kagome into the water, they argue, and when he calls her a loser, she storms into the woods. Ibuki wonders if she's been too soft with Kagome, but Yoichi defends her, saying people have their own reasons. Meanwhile, Masashi, feeling guilty, runs after her, and they both end up falling into a pit trap in the forest. Down in the cavern below, the Mizunagi brothers watch gleefully from above, thrilled that their bait plan might be working. Back on the beach, time passes and the duo still hasn't returned, so the group splits up to search. The girls start blaming themselves for Kagome running off, but Yoichi comforts them, saying Kagome would feel even worse if she knew they were upset over her. Just then, Angela discovers a nearby pit, only to slip on a branch and accidentally sit on Yoichi's face, a moment he barely survives before Ibuki gives him another pummeling. Meanwhile, in the cave, Kagome tearfully apologizes to Masashi for dragging him into her drama, but Masashi softens, admitting he was a jerk and just didn't know how to express concern. His attempt at being smooth lands well as Kagome's heart starts doing somersaults. They spot daylight ahead, but as they rush toward it, Masashi goes full slow-mo cliffhanger and falls over the edge, barely catching a branch. The others arrive just in time, but he slips and Yoichi dives in to save him. Right on cue, the Mizunagi twins show up and start doing their lame attack moves in hopes of trying to drown Yoichi. Thankfully, Chihaya tosses him a floaty while Masashi is forgotten like the middle child. Kagome dives in like a boss, grabs Masashi, and tosses Yoichi his sword before hauling the boy to shore. The twins summon a tsunami, burying Yoichi under a mountain of water, but Yoichi creates a whirlpool, lifts them up with a wind attack, and slams them out of commission with his sword technique. Watching this from the ship, the Yoichi hater fumes over his massive L, but is at least glad he recorded Yoichi's moves. That evening, back at the beach, everyone celebrates Kagome's safe return. Masashi awkwardly praises her, and she thanks him for coming after her, which makes him redder than a crab. While chilling in a nearby hut, Yoichi pats Kagome's head, saying he's proud of her, but the mood turns chaotic when Ibuki tries to take her wet top and accidentally rips it. The group is left stunned when they realize Kagome's been packing this whole time even more than Ayame. Kagome explains she did not want her bazookas to be Ayame's 13th reason, which only pushes Ayame deeper into emotional darkness. The following day, Wasen makes his way to the dojo, looking like the final boss of an insomniac gooner. He quickly stops and refreshes his determination to confess his feelings to Ibuki through a heartfelt letter. On the way, 3 local nobodies spot an elderly man walking toward Wasen. Mistaking the situation for a potential mugging due to Wasen's infamous past, they pray for the all-boomer only to be left dumbfounded when Wasen gently points the Gramps toward his destination before continuing onward with Toragea like a misunderstood anti-hero. A pit stop at the convenience store for snacks quickly turns into a comedic clash as Wasen runs into Iams, and the two engage in a heated tug-of-war over the last limited edition drink on the shelf. While they squabble, 2 local delinquents enter the store and immediately freeze. The sight of the local menace locked in a petty fight with a stunning girl breaks their brains, prompting one to snap a photo to remind themselves not to become angry 4chan users. Later at the dojo, Wasen's love letter burns a hole in his pocket, and he braces himself to make his move. But the moment Ibuki walks up to him, all his determination crumbles into dust, and the letter stays hidden as his resolve vanishes under pressure. Elsewhere, Ayam watches Yoichi from across the room with admiration painted all over her face. Hoping to earn points with him, she recalls an advice given to her earlier, something simple, like handing him a towel. But since everyone is a wuss in this dojo, she too ends up getting nervous. When the opportunity arises, she masks her embarrassment with sarcasm, launching into full defensive mode before tossing the towel his way. The moment falls flat, and disappointment settles in as she realizes her plan failed to impress. Wasen, noticing her sulking, attempts to check in on her mood, only to be brushed off. But as he turns away, the love letter slips from his clothing. Ayam picks it up while Wasen panics upon noticing her holding it. He rushes toward her, desperate to retrieve it. At that very moment, Tsubasa enters the scene. From her angle, the situation looks completely different. Wasen, over Ayam, urgently whispering about keeping something between them. Misunderstanding the moment entirely, Tsubasa flees the room with a heart crushed and becomes convinced of a hidden romance between Ayam and Wasen. Lunchtime follows, and the mood lightens as everyone eats together. As comments about Wasen's transformation surface, Yoichi notices to himself the stark difference between the boy he met and the one present now. Ibuki backs the sentiment, praising him for being so consistent. Though pleased at first, the mood shifts when Chihaya casually brings up the old days, the lone warrior who dismantled Skull Union with nothing but his fists and fury. This reminder hits hard as the once feared, now blends in like a nobody loser. Later at the ramen shop, another storm brews. Angela's attempt to comfort Tsubasa ends with her outfit shredded in an accidental wardrobe disaster. The scene turns into peak fanservice when Yoichi walks in to find her exposed, triggering an explosive nosebleed that sends him spiraling to the floor. While recovering, Yoichi returns a forgotten delivery box to the dojo before stepping out. On his way, he overhears a conversation that shifts his mood entirely. Members of the reassembled Skull Union are plotting to beat Wasen down and reclaim their rep, mocking his transformation into a soft-hearted nobody. As the group walks home post-training, their peace is shattered. Skull Union launches a surprise ambush at the dojo, abducting Ayam as bait. Wasen, caught in the middle of a romantic daydream, is intercepted on the road. Shock freezes him when he sees Ayam held captive. The gang leader, grinning with malice, threatens to release pixelated photos of her unless Wasen stands down. When a brutal beatdown follows, the gang mocks his softness, accusing his friendships of making him weak. The insults sting deeper than the punches since the Wasen of the past fought with nothing to lose, but now he can't even protect one person. All of a sudden, Yoichi storms the scene, dropping gang members with practiced ease. He cuts Ayam free and confronts the attackers, stating that true strength isn't in having nothing to lose, but in fighting for what matters. Wasen, bloodied but conscious, rises again. Together, the two team up and feed the low lives their top-grade knuckle sandwiches. They dismantle the gang one by one, saving their most cinematic move for the boss himself. In the aftermath, Yoichi expresses admiration for Wasen's selfless bravery. But before peace can settle in, Ibuki storms the scene. Her eyes lock onto Ayam in a compromising pose, and fists follow logic straight out the window. Yoichi takes the beating, too stunned to explain. Wasen watches the chaos unfold, misreading the scene yet again. The sight of Yoichi close to Ibuki hits a nerve. With jealousy boiling and frustration peaking, he turns and walks away. Ayam follows. She catches up to him, offering a warm towel as a small token of gratitude. But the gesture is rejected as Wasen walks away. knowing the second main leads never get the Gucci. The next day at the dojo, Ibuki gracefully guides the students through their sword techniques, while Wasen stands there completely entranced like Ibuki is the hen that lays golden eggs. In his mind, he imagines a future with her, one where Yoichi no longer exists. Unfortunately for him, that mental movie gets interrupted when Yoichi snaps him out of it, warning him that spacing out like that mid-duel could have gotten him sent to the afterlife. Wasen does not stick around for the rest of the yap session and starts yelling in frustration, while Ibuki urges Yoichi to stop scaring the only customer who pays their bills. Later that day, Wasen sulks outside the dojo, grumbling to Toragaya about how he was making zero progress with Ibuki and how Yoichi was basically ruining his life. Then, with all the subtlety of a foghorn, he dramatically declares that he is going to confess his love to Ibuki. Of course, fate had other plans because Ayame happened to be standing right behind him when he shouted it. She smacks him with hard and asks him to use his stupidity to get a good parking spot instead of being so loud and reckless. Toragaya tries to explain that Ayame might have thought he was confessing to her, but Wasen doesn't really give a rat's toot until later, when Ayame, in her room, actually begins blushing, believing he had chosen her over her older sister. Back at the dojo, Yoichi is too annoyed to continue training Wasen and dumps the job onto Ayame instead. She is visibly thrown off but steps up anyway. While sparring, Wasen tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Ayame isn't having it. She calls him a thug and flips him to the ground, which then escalates to a screaming match like they are training to be in the third part of Love the Way You Lie by Eminem. The duel dissolves into bickering, with neither side willing to admit they were kind of enjoying it. After training, Wasen trudges home with Toragaya, still frustrated about not getting anywhere with Ibuki. But just as Toragaya casually mentions that Ayame always stares at Yoichi like a middle-aged man who is ready to risk it all for the young waitress, Wasen stops in his tracks while his eyes land on a fireworks festival poster nearby. Suddenly, a dramatic plan starts forming in his head, and he declares he'd use the festival to finally make his move. The next night, the group meets up at the festival. Wasen and Toragaya arrive early and soon Ibuki arrives looking breedable as ever, which instantly renders Wasen mute. Chihaya groans about how massive the festival grounds were, prompting Wasen to suggest they split up into pairs. To rig the matchups, Toragaya pulls out a box with numbers, claiming they'd draw for partners. Unfortunately, the plan completely backfires as Wasen ends up with Ayame, and Ibuki gets paired with Yoichi. Wasen nearly implodes with rage, and Ayame openly laughs at his failure. Ibuki checks out the festival with Yoichi and watches him geek out over little things with childlike wonder. As she smiles at his antics, memories of their first date creep into her mind. But when she turns to say something, Yoichi has vanished like her parents. Meanwhile, Yoichi wanders off and is suddenly attacked by his biggest op. Yoichi effortlessly dodges and returns the thrown weapon. Despite being a hater, the guy is impressed by his skills and introduces himself as Ukayo. Just then, Ibuki finds them, and as soon as Ukayo lays eyes on her, he is smitten, disappearing into the crowd like a ninja in love. Elsewhere, Toragaya, Chihaya, and Kogame stumble across a sweets stall run by a snobby girl named Seiken who hands out fancy treats thinking she is doing God's work by feeding the broke losers. Meanwhile, at the haunted house booth, Angela does a full glam transformation on Tsubasa, dressing her in a dangerously hot Catwoman outfit. When Tsubasa disappears to go meet Ibuki, she becomes hopeful this would finally be her moment with Wasen. Back at the goldfish scooping booth, Wasen is failing miserably at impressing Ayame, who is mostly grumpy about being paired up with a monkey. Meanwhile, at a nearby shooting game, Yoichi is struggling, blaming the fact that he wasn't allowed to use a sword. Saken smiles when suddenly Ibuki joins Yoichi at the shooting game. Upon seeing her, Saken offers Ibuki a challenge. If she knocks down a golden fish target, she'd win a free hot spring trip. She agrees and takes the shot and misses, but then a gust of wind miraculously knocks the target down. Ibuki cheers in victory while Yoichi stands there suspiciously. Meanwhile, from the shadows, Ukayo watches longingly like he is Orochimaru and Ibuki was the Sharingan. Meanwhile, Ayame and Wasen are still wandering around when Ayame complains about how she put effort into dressing up for Yoichi and ended up stuck with the human disaster that was Wasen. He snaps, yelling that he never confessed to her and he was actually talking about Ibuki, who is just better than her. The truth hits Ayame like a truck. But instead of being eye-scayed as a chicken wing, she becomes completely lifeless for a moment and admits that it was strange how she got picked instead of her sister. Just then, she spots Yoichi nearby and looks at him with longing. Seeing this, Wasen surprisingly encourages her to talk to him. However, when Ayam starts to tremble, Wasen asks her what's the matter, and she reveals that everyone wants Ibuki, so it's no use talking to Yoichi. Sensing his mistake, Wasen quickly apologizes to Ayam for his crude remarks earlier. To help Ayam get that samurai weenie, Wasen grabs Ibuki's hand so Ayam can get some alone time with Yoichi. Left alone, Yoichi casually asks Ayam if she wants to walk with him. She shyly agrees and hands him her purse so she can be a baby girl. Meanwhile, Wasen is ready to confess everything only to realize he was holding hands with Tsubasa, who now looks unrecognizable in a costume and horror makeup. This nearly unalives him on the spot. Later, Ibuki clarifies the mix-up, and everyone praises Tsubasa's makeup skills. Wasen, however, sat off to the side, totally defeated. Just as Ayam tries to comfort him, they fall back into their usual banter, yelling at each other like a couple who refuses to get divorced. Then, Ibuki happily announces that thanks to her lucky shot, they are all going on a hot spring trip, whether they like it or not. The next day, after the girls nearly collapse from hiking like broke tourists who trusted Google Maps too much, they finally arrive at the resort. Upon seeing the crazy huge place, the gang comes to the realization that the resort definitely charges for Wi-Fi by the minute. A team of overly cheerful staff greets them at the entrance, smiling like they're legally required to. On the way to their room, the girls glance around in awe, trying not to look like losers who live in homeless shelters. While unpacking, Kogame starts side-eyeing everything like the wallpaper owes her money. She senses something's off since there is no way her sister could have won something like this in a stupid game. However, Ibuki tells her to take a break from playing detective and just enjoy the vacation. The girls head to the hot springs, ready to soak in and relax like exhausted corporate slaves, but on the way, they bump into Yoichi, who's clearly wandering around with no idea what to do with his free time. The girls mention their plans to explore the springs, and Chihaya casually suggests he join them. Before Ibuki can slap the disgusting fantasies out of him, Yoichi runs up to a tree so he can unleash his wood. He then starts wondering how the others back at the mountain dojo are doing. 3 months of training, and he's still not sure if he's getting stronger or just collecting bruises in new places. Later, he's soaking in the bath like a man who's finally stopped pretending to be fine. Ukayo appears through the steam and drops his towel to intimidate Yoichi with his diddler. He then fake compliments Yoichi's dedication for working so hard to become a samurai. Yoichi admits the girls are his main motivation, but the training still matters. Ukayo, however, tells Yoichi he is just freeloading, which puts Yoichi in a spiral. During dinner, the girls are halfway through their meal when the old hostess suddenly appears and drops a ghost story on them to explain why they do not get enough customers. Supposedly, the island is haunted by the spirits of criminals. After dinner, while everyone else heads to bed, Yoichi offers to check out the creepy island as a thank you to the lady. Ibuki insists on coming with him. Chihaya watches them leave and pokes fun at Ayam for letting Ibuki have solo time with Yoichi. Ayam pretends not to care, but her sudden exit suggests otherwise. Chihaya is about to follow when a white smoke fills the room, knocking her out. Saken walks in, pulling off the old lady disguise like she's been dying to do a dramatic reveal all day. Ukayo announces that his brilliant plan is finally working, and it's all thanks to his dear sister, Saken. In the forest, Ibuki and Yoichi are being their usual uncoordinated duo. She says something feels off and Yoichi insists he'll protect her, and she acts impressed even though they both know she's the one who'd win in a fight. A trap triggers, and they fall into separate paths. Yoichi ends up alone, bumping into someone who looks like Ayam, except she starts acting suspiciously. Ayam then hugs him, presses his hands against her chest, and starts whispering things that would get them banned from Disneyland. Yoichi panics as he senses that something's wrong because Ayam never talks in lowercase, let alone whispers like an ASMR creator whose sole purpose is to them wee-wees rising. Meanwhile, Ukayo tries to remind Ibuki that he's her long-lost fiancé. She stares at him like he just claimed to be a talking goat. He drags her along and shows her Yoichi getting aggressively hugged by fake Ayam. However, Ibuki doesn't react the way Ukayo hoped as she claims Ayam would rather take cow dung in her hands and clap than make such bold moves. Ukayo stammers and tries to tell Ibuki that Yoichi is totally horned up. Yoichi eventually pushes the imposter off and says the Ayam he knows doesn't have marshmallows this big, which ticks off everyone present. Ukayo gives up on pretending and signals for more knockout gas. Ibuki collapses again while Yoichi tries to move, but he's already too weak from surviving everything. Ukayo picks up Ibuki bridal style and tells Yoichi to stay in his lane, and walks off. Left alone, Yoichi drags himself back to the inn when he gets ambushed by Hinagata. He calls Ukayo a wuss for using a girl, causing him to scoff as he orders his goons to reconstruct Yoichi's face so that even Bob the Builder cannot fix it back. With that, he promises a reward to whoever finishes Yoichi off. Yoichi, now fueled by adrenaline and sheer anger, takes them all out like someone late for dinner. Inside the resort's giant aquarium, he gets attacked by the Fish Brothers, two guys who smell like they've taken method acting way too far. He beats them up using pure irritation. He finds Chihaya and Kogame unconscious in a storage room. Just as he's about to help, another wave of thugs shows up right before he gets stabbed. Ayame appears like an angel. Yoichi, still barely standing, tells her to run. Ayame ignores him completely and delivers a motivational speech strong enough to summon background music. Inspired, Yoichi stands up and powers through like a man who suddenly remembered his crush is watching. To celebrate this emotional moment, he rewards Ayame by grabbing her chest. A second later, he's flying through the air, slapped so hard it resets him back to factory settings. Ayame storms off to wake the others while Yoichi just lies there, questioning his life choices. Once the girls are awake and regrouped, they storm inside the room to get Ibuki back. However, the gang finds Ibuki asleep, and when she stirs awake, she looks at them, unable to recognize her own family and Yoichi. The next day, the gang returns to their crib, but it's clear Ibuki is not the same as she behaves like a toddler on a sugar rush. Inside the dojo, she looks around and casually asks where their parents are, expecting them to embrace her like she just got into Harvard Law. However, Ayame gives her a polite reality check that their parents now live with the Ukiya clan in hell. When she tells her that it's only them hustlers now, Ibuki locks eyes with Yoichi, sees the sword in his hand, and dropkicks him into the wall like she's auditioning for Kung Fu Panda. She then proudly announces she's 4 years old and a martial arts expert, which sends a collective chill down everyone's spine. Without skipping a beat, Ibuki searches the house yelling for her parents, while the group starts putting two and two together that perhaps Ukayo and Sakin fed Ibuki some wild goat weed that got her behaving like someone who went too greedy with the chromosomes. As Yoichi discusses how those two siblings disappeared without trace, Ibuki yells out for Ayame and Chihaya, but when they arrive, she loudly declares they can't be her sisters because her real sisters are way smaller. To really twist the knife, she takes one look at poor Kagome and says she's never seen her in her life, which hits Kagome right in the feelings and sends her sprinting away to her room. Ayame's fuse snaps, but Chihaya plays peacemaker and reminds her that Kagome didn't exist yet when Ibuki was 4. Meanwhile, Ibuki, feeling completely misunderstood, runs off crying. That night, Yoichi finds Ibuki sobbing outside. He tries to comfort her, telling her the girls are her sisters and not some weirdos, but Ibuki's not buying it. She insists that she especially doesn't know who Kagome is, which makes Yoichi feel sad, but he tells Ibuki that she will soon remember her siblings as her memories will probably come back and suggests they head inside before someone finds her crying and mistakes it for a haunted dojo. Inside, Ayame sees Yoichi holding Ibuki's hands and it hits her straight in the chest. To cut the awkwardness, Chihaya suggests they have dinner. Later that night, Ayame finds Yoichi, and he apologizes for dumping Ibuki on her like she's a daycare center. She shrugs it off, joking that she didn't expect Ibuki to be this stupid when she was younger. When he brings up Ukayo being Ibuki's fiancé, Ayame says she never heard that one from her dad. Yoichi, being the detective nobody asked for, says he believes Ukayo and plans to find him and Sakin to get Ibuki back to normal. Ayame casually asks what he'd do if Ibuki actually married Ukayo. As he struggles to respond, she looks like she's about to confess something but ends up saying goodnight instead, leaving Yoichi standing there like a gooner who got turned down by the local MILF. The next day at training, Ibuki's behavior goes full gremlin. She knocks out Masashi without blinking, and by day's end, Yoichi returns to find Ayame being physically restrained from turning Ibuki into a pancake because she chucked scissors at Chihaya. Yoichi tells Ibuki to apologize, but she bursts into tears and asks why they are behaving this way with a cutie patootie like her. Right then, Ukayo and Sakin stroll in like villains. Yoichi immediately lunges at them like an angry Karen, while Sakin calmly admits she's the reason Ibuki can't remember anything, and tells them the antidote's off the table if they rat out her brother. Ukayo, meanwhile, explains that all he did was grant Ibuki's wish to go back to the last time she was truly happy, which just so happened to be when her biggest worry was nap time. Despite the drama, the girls start realizing Ukayo might be telling the truth. Perhaps Ibuki didn't want to be responsible for the dojo anymore, so she hit the mental rewind button. Ukayo then suggests taking Ibuki off their hands as her self-declared fiancé and promises to pamper the girls with butlers, maids, and probably scented towels. Temptation hits hard. While the girls sample the soft life that comes with selling Ibuki to a sugar fiancé, Ukayo pulls Yoichi aside. He tells him he's basically a glorified couch surfer, training as an excuse to do absolutely nothing. Then he tells Yoichi he'll save the girls from his broke boy existence. Just as Yoichi starts to taste existential defeat, Angela pops in like an RPG side character and offers him a spot at her dojo. Sponsored by Ukayo's hard cash, she claims it's all above board and swears nobody's being trafficked. Later, Ukayo sends his butler wannabe to the playground, where Ibuki is hanging out with Wasen. Wasen tries to stop the guy, but gets tasered so hard his sperms feel it while Ibuki is scooped up and taken to Ukayo. Meanwhile, Yoichi gathers the girls and drops the bomb that he's moving out to join Angela's dojo. The girls look like they just got hit with a surprise quiz. When asked about Ibuki, he admits he left her with Ukayo because he can't help her. He wishes he could have said goodbye but acts like everything's fine. Ayan, trying to be strong, tells him to leave and enjoy his new life. But the mood goes full funeral when they check on Kagome and find her locked in her room. She tearfully asks if Ibuki is really gone and if she's forgotten them forever. Yoichi tells her that's impossible, then turns to Angela and begs for one more day, and then promises Kagome he'll bring Ibuki back. And just like that, the four of them head out on a rescue mission, ready to punch some sense back into their big sister. Later that night, the gang rolls up to the Sajinomiya residence. Yoichi suggests he and Ayan handle things alone, clearly forgetting he is not in a one-man show. The girls shut that idea down faster than the iPhone's battery as Chihaya says it's going to take all of them to save Ibuki, and adds that raiding a rich man's castle has always been her dream. As they approach the estate, Saken spies them from a balcony. She reports to Ukayo, who is inside setting up the least romantic wedding known to man. He asks for alone time so he can marry Ibuki in peace, which sounds way more sinister than Diddy parties. Afraid her bro will not leave her a penny, Saken reluctantly agrees. At the entrance, Saken announces that Ukayo and Ibuki are mid-vows, like that's going to make anyone walk away. As expected, the group does not give a rat's toot, so she ups her game by summoning a battalion of cute maids with automatic weapons. Yoichi steps in and slices every bullet midair. Saken then throws in sleeping gas as a backup plan, but Yoichi Win slashes it away, sending her maids flying like confetti at a birthday party. Trying to slow them down the peaceful way, he grabs Saken and explains they just want Ibuki back because her sisters miss her. The attempt at emotional appeal earns him a slap so hard it installs Samsung's One UI 7 update in his brain. Saken reveals that her brother's all she has left and tells them if they want Ibuki, they're going to have to fight like the Shinobis fought for Naruto. The group charges up the tower, but progress is blocked by an army of e-boys. Yoichi clears the first waves with his air-bending skills, but eventually takes damage when the sheer number of enemies starts looking like a Travis Scott concert crowd. Just as things get dicey, Wasen and Tsubasa arrive. Turns out Torgeya called them for additional help, while Saken sends even more henchmen since money and men is all she got. Yet despite her best efforts, seeing her army fall like dominoes, Saken loses patience and blows up the bridge ahead, trying to trap the main cast. Yoichi and the girls barely make it across before the whole thing collapses, while the others stay back like noble side characters who know they're not getting their contracts updated. As they chase after Saken, Chihaya halts the group before they run straight into a dead end. Meanwhile, Ukayo enters a candle-lit chamber to greet Ibuki, who is still acting like she eats crayons for breakfast and boogers for snacks. He reminisces about meeting her as a kid at her dojo, and deciding right then to become worthy of her, an idea that should have him doing time with Epshin and Diddy. Just as he signals for the wedding to start, Saken barges in asking if this is really the best time to throw a wedding. Ukayo, who has clearly never been told no in his life, snaps. However, when she mentions that Yoichi and crew are nearly there, he decides it's time to personally throw hands. Seconds later, Yoichi storms in like a wind-powered wrecking ball and demands Ibuki's release. Ukayo refuses, proudly claiming he can satisfy her better. Yoichi tells him only Ibuki's sisters can truly make her happy, and he will make sure the sisters are reunited once again. The girls call out to Ibuki and her memory starts to flicker like a busted-up tubalite in a horror movie. But before the moment can bloom into a full reunion, Ukayo grabs her and runs. Yoichi follows, confronting him on the rooftop just as he tries to fly off with Ibuki like a low-budget supervillain. Yoichi dares him to fight like a proper martial artist, no BS this time. Hearing a challenge, Ukayo attacks with his katana fans, confident in his skills. However, Yoichi grins like a man who knows all the codes to the premium Yamada Oniai-san collection. The fight lasts only a few exchanges before Yoichi knocks him down, complimenting his courage but making it painfully clear who's the boss of this boss fight. The girls arrive as Ibuki suddenly stumbles and falls from the rooftop. They all leap after while Sakin holds Ukayo back. Acting quick, Yoichi uses a tornado to cushion the group's fall, casually breaking a few laws of physics. As they land, Yoichi accidentally uses Ibuki's airbags as flotation devices. Now back to her old self, Ibuki rewards him with a punch so fierce, he briefly becomes Icarus. With Ibuki's memories restored, the group returns home victorious. The next day, Yoichi writes a letter to his father, updating him about his wild experiences, the new friends he has made, and his decision to stay longer to train. To pre-book Kagome as your bride, comment baby oil, and if you like anime recaps, watch this video here.